I stepped out of the cab, exhausted from a week-long business conference in Seattle. My suitcase felt heavier than usual as I dragged it up the driveway. Then I froze. Police lights flashed across my house in rotating blue and red. A moving truck sat in my driveway, and my mother-in-law Evelyn stood on my porch directing two men carrying furniture. My furniture. A young officer approached me, notebook in hand. "Ma'am, can I help you? This property belongs to Mark Lewis. Mark Lewis is my husband. This is my house." He frowned, checking his notes. "Are you Amanda Lewis?" "Yes, I just got back from Seattle. What's going on?" Before he could answer, I saw boxes stacked near the curb. My stomach dropped when I read the labels written in Evelyn's distinctive handwriting. "Amanda's Clothes. Donate." Evelyn turned, saw me, and her eyes widened for just a second. Then her expression shifted to something cold and calculating. She walked toward me slowly, her voice dripping with false concern. "Amanda. Oh my God. We thought you were dead, sweetheart." The police officer insisted I come to the station to sort things out. I sat in a cold metal chair while he pulled up his computer. "Mrs. Lewis, your husband filed a missing person report 5 days ago. He claimed you never returned from your trip. A witness," he glanced at his notes, "Evelyn Lewis, stated she called the airline and confirmed you never boarded your return flight." "That's impossible. I was on that flight. I have my boarding pass, my seat assignment." "Do you have proof?" I fumbled for my phone, pulling up my email confirmation. The officer studied it, then shook his head. "We'll need to verify this. In the meantime, there's a complication." "What complication?" "Your husband was granted temporary guardianship of shared assets based on your disappearance." The court moved quickly given the circumstances. My blood ran cold. "What does that mean?" "It means legally, he's been authorized to manage your joint property, including the house." I called my bank on the way out of the station. My joint account showed a balance of $0. It had been emptied that morning. I drove straight home, rage replacing shock. Mark's car was in the driveway now, parked beside Evelyn's Mercedes. I marched up the steps and pounded on the door. Mark opened it, Evelyn standing behind him. Neither looked surprised to see me. "Amanda," Mark said, his voice flat. "We need to talk. You filed a missing person report. You told them I disappeared." Evelyn stepped forward, her smile saccharine. "We were just handling things for you, dear. You disappeared without a word. We were worried sick. I was at a conference. I told you both I'd be gone for a week." "Did you?" Mark's voice was cold. "I don't remember that conversation." I stared at my husband of 8 years. The man I trusted with everything. "What is this? What are you doing?" Evelyn touched Mark's arm gently. "Sweetheart, maybe we should explain inside." "No." I pushed past them into my own house. "I live here. I don't need permission to." The police officer from earlier appeared in the doorway. "Mrs. Lewis, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the property until this is legally sorted out. This is my house." He looked uncomfortable. "Right now, the court order gives your husband temporary control. You'll need to contest that through legal channels." An hour later, I stood on the curb watching my own house like a stranger. My suitcase sat beside me, the only possession they'd allowed me to keep. Evelyn had changed the locks. My key didn't fit anymore. Through the window I could see them moving around inside. Evelyn was directing where furniture should go, rearranging my home like it was hers. Mark stood in the kitchen, staring at his phone, not looking at me once. A neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, approached cautiously. "Amanda, what's happening?" "Mark said He said you'd had some kind of breakdown." "I was on a business trip." She looked at me with pity. "I'm so sorry. If you need anything." But I could see the doubt in her eyes. She'd already chosen to believe their version. That night, I slept in my car in a grocery store parking lot. I stared at the dark windows of my house from 2 blocks away, unable to comprehend how my life had been stolen in 7 days. The next morning I called Tom Baird, an attorney I'd known since college. When I explained the situation, there was a long silence on the line. "Amanda, this is serious. Evelyn couldn't just do this. Mark would have needed to convince authorities you were either mentally unstable or in genuine danger. But I wasn't. I was at a work conference. I believe you. But we need to understand what they told the court." He paused. "Can you come to my office?" An hour later, Tom slid a document across his desk. My hands shook as I read it. It was a sworn affidavit from Mark, dated 3 days into my trip. In it, he claimed I'd been emotionally unstable for months and had made concerning statements about self-harm before leaving on my trip. He stated that when I didn't return as scheduled, he feared the worst. Every word was a lie, but it was notarized, official, legal. "He called me suicidal," I whispered. "It gets worse," Tom said quietly. "This gave him grounds to access your accounts and property, to protect your interests." Over the next 2 days, I discovered the full extent of their plan. Mark had called my office, claiming I'd taken an indefinite mental health leave. My boss, concerned, had granted it without question. Evelyn had visited our neighbors, tearfully explaining that I'd had a breakdown, and the family was trying to protect me. She'd shown them the missing person flyer, painting herself as a concerned mother-in-law. My reputation was destroyed before I'd even landed. Mrs. Patterson mentioned she'd seen a "for sale" sign go up briefly, then come down. When I checked property records, my stomach dropped. Mark had listed the house for sale 3 days ago. Only Tom's emergency injunction had stopped the transaction from completing. "He was going to sell our house while I was gone," I said numbly. "He was going to sell it and pocket the money," Tom corrected. "The listing price was $200,000 below market value. A quick sale. They hadn't just wanted to take control. They'd wanted to liquidate everything and disappear with my assets." I started fighting back methodically. Tom helped me gather every piece of evidence proving my trip was legitimate. My email confirmations, my conference registration, my hotel receipts showing I'd checked in and out normally, my credit card statements showing purchases in Seattle throughout the week. I requested airport security footage showing me going through TSA. Contacted my colleagues who'd seen me at the conference. Got written statements from 3 people who'd had dinner with me the night before my flight home. Tom submitted everything to the court, demanding an emergency hearing. But while we gathered proof of my sanity, Mark was busy too. Tom discovered he'd transferred my car into his name only, moved my savings into an account Evelyn controlled. "He's systematically taking everything," Tom explained. "The car, the savings, the house. He's isolating you financially. Can he do that? He's doing it. Whether it's legal is what we're going to prove isn't." I couldn't stand it anymore. I waited until Evelyn's car left, then approached the house. Mark answered the door, looking tired. "We need to talk," I said. He let me in reluctantly. We stood in the living room, my living room, like strangers. "Why?" asked simply. He couldn't meet my eyes. "Mom said. She said you weren't pulling your weight. That you were holding me back." "Holding you back from what?" "From my potential. From what I deserve." He said it like he'd rehearsed. Like these were Evelyn's words, not his. "So you decided to steal my life." "We didn't steal anything. We were protecting assets that would have been wasted on." "On what?" "On me." My voice was rising. "I bought this house, Mark. My down payment. My salary paid the mortgage while you were finding yourself, for 3 years." He finally looked at me, and what I saw was worse than hatred. It was indifference. "You were gone," he said flatly. "So we moved on." Evelyn walked in mid-argument, her expression ice-cold. "Still here, Amanda. I thought we made it clear. This is my house." "Was your house." She smiled. "Tomorrow we're filing for full control of your assets. Mark's lawyer assures us it's just a formality now. You can't do this. I'm not dead. I'm not missing. I was on a business trip. Were you? Evelyn's voice was poisonous. Or did you abandon your husband and then come back making wild accusations because you felt guilty? That's insane. Is it? You have been unstable lately. Everyone says so. Even your boss agreed you needed time off. She stepped closer. Who do you think they'll believe? A concerned family? Or a woman having a breakdown? I looked at Mark, waiting for him to object, to defend me. But he just stood there, silent. That night, in a cheap motel room, I stared at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red from crying. I looked exhausted, defeated. And I made a decision. I would never cry in front of them again. The grief was over. Now came the fight. Tom and I met with a forensic accountant named Patricia Wallace. She specialized in cases of financial fraud and asset hiding. The missing person filing doesn't align with your flight records, she noted, highlighting discrepancies in her report. Mark filed the report on Tuesday, but your return flight was scheduled for Thursday. Why report you missing 2 days before you were due back? Because he wanted to get started before I could interfere, I said. Exactly. Which suggests premeditation. I'd also opened a new bank account, moving the small amount I had left in my personal account, the one Mark didn't know about, into a new one he couldn't access. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Then Patricia found something that made my blood boil. Amanda, did you sign anything transferring property rights? No, nothing. She showed me a document, my signature at the bottom, transferring my half of the house to Mark. That's not my signature. Are you sure? Positive. I never signed something like that. And look at the date. I was in Seattle. Patricia smiled grimly. Then we have them. That's forgery. I didn't confront them about the forgery. Tom advised patience. Let them think they're winning. People get careless when they think they've won. Instead, I went about my business quietly. Got a new phone plan they couldn't track. Rented a small apartment. Started rebuilding. But I was listening. Always listening. One afternoon I sat in my car outside a real estate office. Evelyn was inside talking to an agent. I'd followed her there, suspecting something. I couldn't hear through the glass, but I watched her gesture enthusiastically. Watched her laugh. Watched her show the agent something on her phone. When she left, I went inside. The agent recognized me from photos. Oh, you must be Amanda. Your mother-in-law was just here discussing the house sale. She's so excited to have it under her name soon. Under her name? Yes, she said once the transfer completes, she'll be handling the sale. Between you and me, she seems very determined. The agent then did something incredibly helpful. She forwarded me the email chain with Evelyn, including an attachment showing the forged transfer document. The insurance claim was the breaking point. Tom called me, his voice tight with anger. Amanda, Mark filed a life insurance claim. On you. What? He listed you as presumed dead. Filed with your life insurance company 3 days ago. My hands went numb. He's trying to collect on my death. $300,000. That's the policy value. I sat down, the room spinning. They hadn't just wanted my house and savings. They'd wanted my insurance money. They were truly trying to erase me. That's fraud, I whispered. That's criminal fraud. And we're going to use it. I spent that evening with Patricia, building a timeline. Every document, every transaction, every lie. We organized it into a comprehensive fraud case that would show clear premeditation and criminal intent. Mark and Evelyn thought they were clever, but they'd left a trail that was impossible to hide. The unexpected ally came from the bank. A teller named Rosa called me privately. Mrs. Lewis, I hope you don't mind, but something felt wrong when your husband came in last week. What happened? He demanded early withdrawal of funds from your joint account. He had your mother-in-law with him and she was supervising everything. Felt off. like he was being controlled. Did he say anything? He asked about closing your personal accounts too. The ones in just your name. I told him he'd need your authorization and he got angry. Your mother-in-law said something about you being incapacitated. Rosa agreed to testify if needed. She also mentioned something else. They opened a new account that day. Joint account with just his and his mother's names. They transferred a lot of money into it. Secret account. In Evelyn's name. They were hiding assets, probably planning to split them once the house sold and the insurance paid out. Tom filed an emergency injunction, halting all property sales and account withdrawals pending investigation. The judge granted it immediately given the evidence of fraud. Evelyn called me that night screaming, "You vindictive witch! How dare you freeze our accounts? Your accounts? You mean my money that you stole? We didn't steal anything. That money was Mark's right as your husband, while I was supposedly dead. Or just missing. Which story are you going with now?" She hung up. 2 days later I received a letter, typed on Evelyn's personal stationery, but unsigned. "Drop this case or you'll regret it. You've already lost everything. Don't make it worse." I showed it to Tom. He smiled. "She's scared. Good. I'd been quiet about my situation at work, but finally I contacted my boss. Showed her every piece of documentation proving I'd been at the conference. Showed her the evidence of Mark's lies. My God, Amanda. Had no idea. He sounded so convincing on the phone. He had help. My company reinstated me immediately. Offered legal support if needed. My colleagues sent messages of support, mortified they'd believed the lies. My world slowly stabilized. Had a job, an apartment, legal representation, evidence. But Evelyn was getting desperate. Mrs. Patterson called me, voice shaking. "Amanda, I need to tell you something. Evelyn asked me to lie to the police. She wanted me to say I'd seen you arguing violently with Mark before you disappeared. She offered me money. Did you agree?" "Of course not. But I thought you should know." I recorded Mrs. Patterson's statement. Tom submitted it as new evidence. The district attorney's office took notice. Mark showed up at my work 3 weeks later. He looked terrible. Unshaven, exhausted, paranoid. "We need to talk. Privately." Against my better judgment, I agreed. We sat in the parking lot. "Amanda, please. Let's fix this quietly. Drop the charges. We'll split everything 50-50 and go our separate ways." "You mean you'll give me back half of what you stole?" "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Mark? Explain to me how reporting me missing, forging my signature, filing a death insurance claim, and trying to sell my house wasn't theft." He broke. "It was Mom's idea. All of it. She said you were holding me back, that I deserved better, that we could start fresh if you just erased me. I didn't want to. But she kept pushing and I thought maybe she was right. Maybe you were." "Were what?" "Were the problem." Pulled out my phone. He didn't realize it was recording. "So you admit your mother planned this? The missing person report, the forgery, all of it?" "Yes. But we can fix it now. Just drop the case and let you get away with fraud. With trying to steal my life." He grabbed my arm. "Please, Amanda. She'll destroy me if this goes to court. She's already threatening to." Tom worked with the DA's office to build the criminal case. The fraud timeline was damning. The forged signature. The premature missing person report. The insurance claim on someone who wasn't dead. Then police reopened the case, not as a missing person incident, but as insurance fraud and identity falsification. Detectives arrived at Evelyn's house with a warrant, searched her home office, seized her computer and files. They found drafts of the forged documents, email chains with Mark discussing the plan, even a handwritten timeline in Evelyn's writing detailing each step of how to secure Amanda's assets. She'd documented her own crime. Evelyn confronted me outside my apartment building. Neighbors watched as she screamed, "You're ruining this family. After everything I did for you. I welcomed you into our home, and this is how you repay me. You tried to have me declared dead. Because you're poison. You always were. Mark was thriving before you trapped him. Someone was filming. The video would later go viral locally, destroying Evelyn's carefully cultivated image as a pillar of the community. You're selfish," she shrieked. "You care more about money than family." "You're right," I said calmly. "I do care about my money. The money I earned. The house I bought. The life you tried to steal." The police were called. Evelyn was escorted away, still shouting threats. 3 days later, I received a court summons. Mark was suing me for defamation. Tom laughed when he read Mark's lawsuit. "He's suing you for defamation. After committing fraud. Is this a joke? It's desperation. They're trying to intimidate you into settling. Instead we filed a countersuit. Fraud. Defamation because they destroyed my reputation. Emotional distress. Every crime documented with overwhelming evidence. The court date was set for 6 weeks away. During that time, Evelyn tried to convince Mark to flee. I knew because Rosa, the bank teller, heard them arguing in the parking lot. "We should leave the country," Evelyn insisted. "Before it's too late. Mom, running makes us look guilty. We are guilty. But we can still escape if we move fast." Mark refused. He was terrified, but not enough to become a fugitive. The courtroom was packed. Evelyn sat rigid in her chair, Mark beside her looking like he might be sick. I sat with Tom calm, prepared. Every document organized. Every witness ready. The judge reviewed the evidence before the trial even began. The forged signature. The insurance claim. The recorded confession from Mark. The email chains. The timeline in Evelyn's handwriting. When Evelyn took the stand, she tried to play victim. Claimed she was just a concerned mother protecting her son. Then they played Mark's confession. His voice filled the courtroom. "It was Mom's idea. All of it." Evelyn's face went white. The prosecutor presented the forged documents. The insurance claim filed while I was alive and well. The bank records showing systematic asset transfer. The judge's tone grew harder with each piece of evidence. "This isn't a civil matter. This is criminal conduct." He ordered an immediate asset freeze for both Mark and Evelyn pending criminal charges. The verdict came swiftly. Mark and Evelyn were charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, forgery, and insurance fraud. Police escorted them from the courthouse in handcuffs. Evelyn was crying, shouting that this was all a misunderstanding. Mark stared at the ground, silent. I stood on the courthouse steps, surrounded by reporters. "Mrs. Lewis, how do you feel?" "I just wanted my life back," I said simply. That night, the local news ran the story. Local woman fights back after family tries to steal her identity and assets. The support was overwhelming. Strangers sent messages. People shared their own stories of family betrayal. I wasn't alone. 3 months later, I stood outside my house with the same police officer who'd first questioned me. This time, his demeanor was completely different. "Mrs. Lewis, the property has been legally restored to your name. The locks have been changed back. It's yours again." I walked up those steps, key in hand. Unlocked my own front door. Stepped inside my home. Everything was different. They'd redecorated, changed furniture, altered the space. But it was mine again. I spent the first night walking through each room, reclaiming them. The bedroom where Mark and Evelyn had plotted. The kitchen where they'd celebrated too early. The living room where they'd directed movers to take my possessions. All mine again. On the counter I found a letter. From Mark. Postmarked from county jail. I opened the letter in the morning sunlight. "Amanda, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know what we did was unforgivable. But I need you to understand, I was weak. Mom convinced me you were the enemy, and I believed her because it was easier than standing up to her. I destroyed everything for money I didn't even need and respect I never earned. Sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. But I'm sorry. Mark. I read it twice. Then I filed it with all the other evidence. An apology didn't undo fraud. Didn't give me back the months of hell. Didn't erase the betrayal. But it was acknowledgement. And maybe that was enough. The mediation center was neutral ground. Evelyn sat across from me, looking decades older. Prison time was looming. Her assets were seized. Her reputation destroyed. I want you to know I did it for my son, she said quietly. Everything I've ever done was for Mark. You tried to have me declared dead. I thought he deserved better than being held back by his wife who bought his house, paid his bills, supported him for years. She had no answer. You taught me something, Evelyn, I said. You taught me what control looks like when it's cruel, when it's selfish. I just chose a better version of it. What does that mean? It means I took my life back. And I won't let anyone take it again. I stood, walked toward the door. Didn't look back. Amanda, please. But I was already gone. 6 months later, I stood on my porch watching the sunset. The house had been renovated, made mine again in every way. New paint, new furniture, new memories beginning. Work had promoted me. My relationships with real friends had strengthened. I'd started therapy, processing the trauma of betrayal. But mostly I'd found peace. The legal battles were over. Mark and Evelyn both pled guilty to avoid trial. Received prison sentences and restitution orders. Everything they'd taken was returned, plus damages. I didn't gloat. Didn't celebrate their downfall. Just quietly reclaimed my dignity, my home, and my life. Mrs. Patterson brought over cookies one evening. I'm so sorry I doubted you, she said. You believed what you were told. They were convincing. Still, you were so strong through all of it. I thought about that night in my car. About the moment in the motel when I decided to stop crying. About every small victory that led to this moment. I just refused to disappear, I said. Because that's what they'd wanted. For me to vanish quietly. To give up. To let them win. Instead I'd stood my ground. Fought back. Proved the truth. Sometimes revenge isn't dramatic. It's simply getting everything back and living well while they watch from prison cells. I'd reclaimed my peace, my dignity, and my life. And that was the best victory of all.